Hello. Hello, hi Devansh. Am I audible to you?
Hello, sir.
Yeah, so I was asking, is there any group for backend Node.js?
Yes, sir. Sir, I am sending message to the group.
Is it on WhatsApp or Discord?
Sir, it is on WhatsApp.
अच्छा, वो कम्युनिटी वाला है या फिर नॉर्मल है?
सर दोनों है वैसे।
अच्छा, ओके। ऋतिक ने आई थिंक मुझे ऐड नहीं किया उसमें। बैकएंड नोड जनवरी, राइट? If are you there in that WhatsApp group? So if you can like drop a message, so please drop for the student to join the lectures.
Yes, sir. I have sent the message.
Okay, okay, thank you. At least there are not a lot of students in this particular class, but एक दो भी मतलब तीन चार आ जाएं तो फिर शुरू करते हैं, वरना टाइम वेस्ट।
Yes. Sir, Ritik sir is saying that he has already sent the message for joining class.
ओके, मैंने अभी ऋतिक ने आई थिंक कम्युनिटी पे ड्रॉप किया था, बट 628 पे किया था। मैं कम्युनिटी ग्रुप पे तो हूँ। ओके लेट्स देवांश 8:20 तक वेट करते हैं, अगर कोई आता है तो फाइन,
ठीक है
अदरवाइज हम
सर,
शुरू कर
काफी
लेंगे।
टाइम आएगा।
यस सर।
ओके थैंक यू। देवांश कैन यू शेयर द ग्रुप लिंक इन द ग्रुप?
सर मीटिंग लिंक।
हाँ ये मीटिंग, जूम मीटिंग लिंक है ना, ये भेज दो ग्रुप में।
ओके सर।
व्हाट हैपन आकाश? क्या ज्वाइन नहीं कर पा रहे थे क्या? देवांश मैंने भेज दिया है, कोई इशू नहीं है।
मेरे को कुछ पता नहीं है व्हिच मॉड्यूल आई एम इन राइट नाउ। मेरा पोर्टल में मेरे को दिखा रहा है डीएसए प्लेसमेंट प्रेप 1 जनवरी। तो आई हैव नो आइडिया व्हाट इज हैपनिंग। मैंने बैच मैनेजर को बोला है, लेट्स सी।
ओके ओके। ये देवांश, इनकी आवाज़ क्या आपको भी क्रैक्ड आ रही थी या सिर्फ मुझे ऐसी आ रही थी?
नहीं सर, ठीक आ रही थी आवाज।
ओके, आई थिंक मेरे एंड से इशू है कुछ। आप कोई बोलना कुछ? हेलो देवांश, आकाश, कुछ बोलना? समझ?
हेलो।
या अब फाइन है, ठीक है। ओके, थैंक्स। Also, Lenson, it was the same case with you. Were you not able to join the class?
So for me, I was the portal was showing as DSA module, and the class was showing as 9 p.m. for SQL class.
ये सेम
Okay.
सेम फॉर मी। आई थिंक दे डिड समथिंग।
Yeah, there might be an issue.
And
Yesterday, the portal was down at the time of the main class, and yes, today we Devansh and me we are waiting from like 20 minutes.
yeah, exactly. So and moreover, even in Discord, right? It's like almost the access has been revoked there. So none of the messages are loading in the AccuJob Discord for me. Like no channels, nothing there.
Okay,
So
then
it
it is
was like
something serious.
so it was like complete outage. So I was actually completely lost because even the WhatsApp I could not send message to anybody there.
Okay. And I was only in the community channel, so I only have the view access, not the write
Say,
access. So I was not able to
yeah.
drop message. What?
AccuJob is getting shut down.
No, no, don't say it like this. There are thousands of students depending on you. Okay, no issues. Let's start. Uh, okay, cool. Let's just start it. Okay, so today, the topic that we're going to cover is basically the APIs and all about the APIs. Okay, just give me a second. Okay, let me just open the curriculum. Okay, so the things that we're gonna like study today is about the APIs. So then there are multiple in API. We're gonna go a bit more into depth of it. Then we're gonna see what are the web APIs, right? What is web APIs? And then we're gonna see what are the REST APIs. So basically, this is what you can say today's agenda. So this is what we're gonna do. So in between, if you like break down into more depth of it, so the first things here we will cover the first, what is API? What is API, right? Then the second point will be the components of API. Components of API. And then we have introduction to web API. Intro to web API. Then I think the usage and some of the popular web API we're gonna see. So you can say uses of web API and popular web API. Popular web API. We're gonna look at those things, right? Then we're gonna see why we need to use only web API, means why we are using or studying why web API. So why basically why web API? Then we're gonna dig into, so this was the earlier curriculum up to this part, not up to this part, only this part. So you can say this was the earlier curriculum that we used to teach, but there are a few things that I have included, and it is very important. So that's is basically introduction to REST API. So now REST API come into in picture, and like 99.9% of the time when you're working as a MERN stack developer, you will be dealing in the REST APIs only, right? So that's why it is important to study. Then we have brief about the methods that REST APIs use. Basically, that like brief about request, you can say, or method. I will go more into depth when we will learn about that. So brief about requests or method of APIs of REST APIs of REST API. Then we're gonna see the comparison between the web API and the REST API. Comparison between REST and web. Just a second, just give me a second. So comparison between REST and web API. So this will be the things that we're gonna cover today, right? So it's important because if I'm just gonna start with the like implementation part, and most of the Node lectures, Node tutorials, Node courses that you're gonna see, they do not cover the theoretical parts. They just start coding and then start like developing the servers, APIs, right? But it's important because a lot of students which come here, they do not belongs to any like CS background, so they are not very familiar with the computer networks, they are not familiar with the operating systems and bit, right? So that's why we need to first cover the theoretical part. You can expect today's and the day after tomorrow, like half the session of tomorrow to be theoretical, and after that we will go more into the depth of implementation part. Okay. So before starting this particular web API and all of this stuff, I just need to teach you one thing, that is domain name server. What is DNS? I just want to like this is not a part of today's lecture, but I just want you guys to know this, how this process work, because it's something that is very frequently asked in the interviews, right? So domain name server, what it means, and why we are using this, or where it get used. So very famously, interviewer can ask you what is DNS, right? So anyone of you have any idea about DNS? कभी सुना है नाम? Anyone? Lenson, can you like give me the brief कि क्या होता है ये?
Yep, sure. So basically, in the world, right, there are multiple computers. So for accessing the computers, right, they have been assigned IP addresses. But it is not possible for like humans to understand like IP addresses, right, for communicating. So due to this reason, domain naming system was introduced. So basically what they do is, for example, google.com, right? So whenever we do a google.com, it will resolve it to that specific IP address, and then it will do the communication. So basically, domain name system means, for example, google.com, yahoo.com are FQDNs, right? So these are mapped to some IP addresses. So that is the domain name system. So whatever FQDN which we have, so that is the FQDN which is mapped to some IP address.
Correct, absolutely correct. So yeah, he has explained what exactly the DNS is. So basically, I'll just break down into more layman terms. So let's say this is my client side, right? And you want to the way Lenson was saying, ki it is hard to remember an IP address because it is something like, let's say 19.21, then 32, and then 3 digit here, I think 1 2 3. This is something what an IP address. IP address क्या होता है? It is just a address of the machine, right? So like my PC also has its own IP address, your PC will have a different IP address. So when we are creating a node server, let's say we are creating a server in a local host, and then we are we are they will deploy one of the servers in their own machines, right? So now you can hit those things. So this is the place where you can found those servers like google.com or any Microsoft website, any yahoo.com, any YouTube, right? So you can find that particular say. So you have to make a request at this particular place in order to get the files. What files? Basically their HTML, CSS, JavaScript files. To interact with those files, you need to make a request on this particular address, right? So when we were writing localhost 8000, so then slash login, so you'll make those requests at this particular IP address. So you need those things, right? The IP address is required at that particular place where my server is located. But the question arises, there are maybe millions of websites are there, right? And we cannot remember each and every website by this particular format. So more importantly, the easy way of remembrance of something is by their name. So we have, someone thought that okay, we have to map this particular thing with their names. So now for domain, if you're buying a domain, you buy a particular address, a location over the net. Along with that, you buy a name, right? So let's say for this address, it will be www.google.com, right? Google.com. So this is what you have about. So now if a person searches this in a client side, so this is my URL, right? This is the URL box and you can search at particular place. So I'm writing this particular thing, which is a string. So now what DNS do? So DNS is also a server. DNS is also a server, right? DNS, so domain name server, and what it does basically, it will get a particular IP address. So sorry, it will get this particular string. So you make a request at this particular place, request, and you send this particular string here. Let's say Google. Okay, you send this particular thing here. What it gonna do is it gonna resolve that, and there is you can think of a hash map or something that they have mapped this particular thing with their IP addresses. So these are the key value pair. This will be the key and this will be the value, right? You can think something something like this. So you send this particular name, they will resolve and they will send you that this is the IP address where you're trying to locate. So now what will happen is once they resolve this, so now there will be an external server. Just give me a second. So now you need to make a request at that particular server, right? So this was my google.com or this particular IP address. So now from here, all the files will be redirected to me, means they will send me the response. So first my DNS helped me to convert this particular name to an IP address. I found that IP address, I make a request at that particular place, and now this machine, or yeah, of course, a machine, a server, a machine will respond me with all the files that I need. So when you are searching for google.com, this is the complete process which is taking place, right? So DNS is nothing, just mapped. You can think of this. It just mapped your URL with your IP address, with IP addresses. Okay, that's very important to understand because it's a middleware, or you can think of an party which is working there every time we're making a request, but we are not aware of that, right? So you search something as a URL, it will map with the key value pair. There will be a key value pair and the key will be this and value will be an IP address. Then you have located that IP address, you'll go there, you find you make a request, and all the restricted files, all the files that HTML, CSS, JavaScript files that this particular machine needs to show me at the get request, they will show me that. And yahan pe after searching google.com, I will get a page by a search bar, and in between there might be written as Google or something, whatever the design it is, right? So this is the complete process of DNS. So you need to remember this. It is very important from like interview point of view and everything, right? So I think it's clear. If it is, let me know. Can we proceed further? Any doubt, guys? Okay, ठीक है. Okay, let's move further off topic before the class. Okay, sure. Okay, so now we're gonna start with the today's agenda. So there is basically an API wala part and all. Okay, so first let's understand what is an API. So what is an API? So first I'll write few definitions so that I can like provide you guys these things as an resource or anything you want, right? So it's an you can the full form of this is an application programming interface, right? Application programming interface. Programming interface. Right. So what it does, it has a certain sets of command and functions and protocols that that you are defining on a particular thing, right? So those things will have some commands, some functions, some protocols, and you are sending from one machine to another, right? So like you need a tool for that. So what is the tool that we are using for that is an API. So API is nothing where we as a developer use those things to communicate between the machines, different machines, right? Let's say your local host, your client side is, let me write the definition first, then I'll go there. So what is an API? An interface which contains, you can say, a set of commands, functions, protocols, because protocols is important in order to make a connection and then send data, right? An object. Okay. The programmer or us uses this to interact between client or server or any external client. So the programmer uses this to interact with client or server or external server, right? So these are the kind of stuff which is happening. So I'll just explain how this is working. Okay, let me explain here only. So let's say there is your client and you want to send some information or you want to retrieve some information from the server, right? So now you're sending some request and you are getting a response before that. So there will be a certain tool which is help us to in order to like send these requests, that is known as API. So if I just need to mark something, this is your API, right? This part. So not a client, not a server, but the middleware which is helping us to communicate between these particular things. Now when I say that it has few functionalities, few protocols, few connection, why? So coming to the protocol part first. So protocol is something in computer networks that you cannot send data from, let's say, machine 1 to machine 2, right? Even if it is connected with a LAN or some wired, or it is connected over a particular WAN. Okay, they are connected to a same Wi-Fi, they are same connected to same internet, right? And or they are located at different locations, right? Let's say my client is at localhost 3000 and my server is at localhost 8000, right? So in order to send information 8000, right? So in order to send information from this particular place to this here, either to retrieve it, you need to make a connection first. Now let's say this was the data send part, data sending. So before that, building a connection or setting a connection comes. So first connection take place, and this connection required few protocols. So there will be HTTP protocol, UDP protocol. So these are the protocol which allow you to first make a connection and then allow you to send the information. So this is every time which is happening. So just think that, okay, when you're calling someone, your data has been sent to some other person over some networks, right? And that is a different technology that they are using. Here there is a different technology, so you have to understand that, okay, this connection is important in order to send a data. That's very important. You, if you want to go further, more into deep of it, so you can learn about HTTP protocols, UDP. So these are the things which help you, right? Now let's say this was on localhost 3000. This was on localhost 8000. Now you can deploy this particular thing on a different cloud, and you can deploy this particular thing on different cloud. So now it will make a request. So let's say I'm making a request. Why I'm making a request? So I need to like implement for certain functionality here. So yesterday you guys have seen that there was something that I have written as something like this. This was my home route, and instead of that you can write localhost 8000 here, a localhost 8000, and then forward slash. So because yesterday we were on the 8000, when we were searching that particular request on the Google, we were typing localhost 8000 only. So when I have on that server only, that means you are on the home route only. Then with that you can invoke a function. You can invoke a function. So that is important, that okay, like when you are writing a program, so you want something to take place, right? So what you do, you write function and then call a function. But here a function has been written on some another machine. So this was the function part which has been written on some other machine, and from where you have to invoke that particular function from the client side. So how you can connect these two things? So basically this is what help us, that okay, you are telling this is the particular location where you hit a URL. Let's say from here I'll search localhost 8000. Okay, I'm not searching, I'm making a request here. I'm making a get request at this particular place, right? This is my particular place, http localhost colon 8000. So now what this particular thing is doing, it is going to make a request at this particular place, and it will invoke this function. So now on the server side, where you can like have your business logic, you can create a new person inside a database, you can retrieve some information from the database, you can talk to some external server. So whatever you need, you can do that here, right? But how you going to invoke that? With this part. So you gonna make a request from here, and this. Now what is sending the information? We are sending that with the help of API, and then we will retrieve those information with the help of an API only. So that is the role of an API, right? Yeah, and you can send the information in like most of the API follow HTTP protocol in order to make the connection, and there is URL protocol as well, but most of the APIs uses this HTTP protocol, and they send an information. You can send a information in multiple format. Few of the format will be like JSON, XML. There will be, you can send a text, you can send HTML. These are the things in which you can send information, right? So like if I want to send, yesterday we were sending a text in the form of a string, right? You can also send an HTML templates also from the servers to the this particular part, right? And similarly JSON or XML, we will go more into the depth of JSON, because in majority of our project and in industry, JSON is something which is using, because here the search and the finding becomes very fast, right? So this is what we're going to use. So yeah, that's what about an theoretical part of an API. So let's talk about now what you guys were doing earlier, and when we were like learning the React part. So let's say you were trying to create a food application. So एक food application website बनाना था, that we you guys also might have done, or let's say weather application, right? You guys have heard about these kind of an application only with the front end part, right? Which only includes front end. How? So there are some external servers, right? So let's say this was my external server. What they contains, they contain information and they contain data. So what they do, they provide you guys an API, right? So let's say you created a React application. So now you have those APIs, you can hit at that particular server, and it will retrieve you back, let's say about the food information, about the hotel informations, about the weather. So you are sending, let's say you will send the post ID. Let's say I want an weather application. So for weather application, I need to know the location. So location can be done with the help of postal address, like postal ID. So I will send a postal ID, right? And in the form of, let's say, JSON. So it will be the key value pair, right? So in the form of JSON, I'm sending that, and then that particular external server will retrieving you back the all the information about that particular like weather, rainy or not, whatever the information in the form of a JSON or not. So this is what you guys were doing as of now. But now, instead of directly communicating with the external server, you will have your own server. So let's say this was your React, and here you were sending the request, you are retrieving it. Now you have your own server. Now if you want to like connect with this particular external server, now my server will communicate with that, right? Just a second. Let's say external server. So now I will make a request here, they will make a request here, retrieve the information and send me back. Why? Because there might be a need that I do not want to just interact with the external server. I need my like database, I need all of this stuff, right? Like my own files to read write operation. I can extract, like you are making request on the external server every time you want to extract the data. Now what you can do, make a request to your external data, get the information on your server, and then store that inside your database, so that you do not need to make again and again request. Now every request and database calling of the database and retrieving the information from the database is very fast as compared to getting information from an external server. Also, why? Because as a developer, as a like, you cannot rely on someone servers, because right now let's say they are free, but later on they can ask you for some money, that okay, now we have shifted from free to paid version, and now you have built your own whole startup on that based off an external server, but now you have to shift everything, and either you have to pay them, right? So that's very important, that you should have these things of your own, right? Your own server, your own database. And if you're connecting, and also one more thing, that here when we were connecting, they were providing one kind of an what एक API key provide करते हैं, right? Have you guys heard about this API key? एक API key they guys used to provide external server ka, like for example, one of the thing is MailChimp. Have you guys used MailChimp? Any weather application, any weather website, they are providing you the information about the weathers or anything. Have you guys ever used some external server to use retrieve any information? So they provide you an API key. So every time you have to make an request, you need to provide an API key, right? So that is very important when this comes to an API key, because they know they can track your all the things about your business and everything. And if it's going like you're doing good, they can like ask you for more money and everything. So that's why it is not a good practice of working in this way. And that's why you need a server, you need an API. So whenever you are making a request in the connection, this what comes into an picture. Okay, so just a second. Now coming to what API consists of, okay? Because we have understood one thing, that okay, API is something that we are using for sending the data, receiving the data, right? For making any functions to work on the server side. Server is what? A listener. API is what? It's a network calls, and server is listening to all the uh, network calls which is coming from the client side. It could be anything. It could be any, let's say, window. It could be any iOS device. It could be any Android device, and they all are making requests. They all are making requests on the APIs. There will be an API, and then they're coming to your server. So these are the network calls. Everything is coming to your server and you are dealing with that, right? Now we have to understand few things, that what an API consists of, so that we can differentiate them. We can work on that, right? Always remember one thing, I'm keep repeating again and again. Server is what? Server is a listener. Listener to what? A network calls, right? Okay. So yeah, what API consists of? Okay. So the first thing, one by one, I'll explain you everything. So let's say if the first thing is endpoint, then we have a path, we have parameter, then we have authentication, right? Authentication. This is E. Okay. So now what they means, and we are going to break down our APIs. That's what we're going to do. Okay. So let's say when you search an AccuJob platform, so what you're writing is www.accujob.com, right? So when you search this particular thing, what DNS do, DNS is going to convert this into an IP address. Now you're going to search the IP address and they are going to retrieve you some information like basic HTML CSS file for the home page, right? So the home page is coming to you. So you search for this particular place, and you, what it means, you are making on the server, you are making a request on the home page, right? Whatever their domain address will be, basically at that place at home route, you are making a request. So this is one of the thing. Let's say now you search for AccuJob /gym. So now this particular thing is making a request at /gym, right? Then similarly, AccuJob /profile or module, anything. So now you are making a request at /profile. So you need to understand that this was the home route, and everything which is coming after this is where you are making a request, and you have to write in this order, right? So now here you can assume a normal this route. Here we have this particular thing and then this particular thing. So this is what this is. We call it as endpoint. This is what endpoint means. That way you are trying to point at particular things. You have the domain address, but you are calling at which route of that domain address, right? So these are the routes that we have created, endpoints. So you are invoking these endpoints, right? /gym /profile and these. So whatever the function that we have written for these things is going to invoke. So from here, from the front end, from the client side, you are clicking on few things, you're submitting a form, you are doing few stuff, and then they are calling it back at certain profile. So let's say you click on a button which is doing to connect a class, right? Or to submit a question that you have written. So now that will call a different a different URL, a different endpoint, and then you can deal with that. So these, what is an complete, you can say, endpoint means. Now what is path? Path is this, the complete of this, right? So this is what path is. So if I just break down, this was the path, right? The white one, this one, and this is the endpoint. So complete path will be this, something like, let's say you're trying to search HTTP localhost 8000, right? /login. Okay. So this is where we are trying to make a request. So this whole will be my path, right? This whole will be my path, but this will be the endpoint. This will be the endpoint, right? I think I'm making some sense, right? I'm able to differentiate between these two things, what is path and what is endpoint, right? Are you guys able to understand this thing? Okay, great. Okay, so let's say when okay, one more thing. So whatever the request that you make from the URL, right? जब भी हम Chrome या browser के उससे कोई भी request करते हैं, that is a get request. We will go more into a depth of it, but I'm now starting with like few of the things that, okay, let's say when I have to search for things, like जो ये URL होता है ना, ये यहाँ पे ये जो चीज होती है, from this particular place you can only make a get request. So whatever you are trying to search from here, that will only make a get request. Okay. So how, if you're trying to search for accujob.com, so now how we are going to write a endpoint for that? So this way, app dot, what was the app was invoking a server. We were writing something like this na, const app, and that was equals to the express, right? So express was a server, we call that function, and whatever the functionality of that server is, that is now stored in our app, right? And this is the common, you can say, we uses in the industry, that okay, every time that you have to define a server, we uses app for like Express and Node.js, right? So someone is searching for accujob.com, they are making a get request from the client, right? They are making a get request. Now a backend what will do, I need to handle that request so that I can retrieve, I can give back some files that the user wants, right? So it will be, I'm mentioning a get request. So if the person is making a get request, then you should have a route for get request. If the person is making a get request, but you have like you have written correctly here that this is my home route and this is what the functionality needs to do, my res request and response, and then these are the functionality that you need to perform. So you have written correctly, but instead of get, let's say you have written a post request, but the endpoint is same, they are not going to be invoked. Because in APIs, two things that is important is first your endpoint, right? And the second is the method. This is what we call as method. Get, there are more methods. We will look into this. But as of now, I'm just teaching you guys that in API, if you try to invoke something at the backend, two things that you need to match is the endpoint and the method. So now how you can make another request, what are the another kind of requests? We will go more into the depth of that later on. Okay, so just a second. Yeah, I can like teach you guys few things about parameters. Yeah, okay, parameters is important. Just a second. Okay, what do you mean by parameters? I'll just explain that thing. Parameters. So in requests that you are sending in those URL, you can send certain parameters. So let's say in the get request, what are the parameters that you can send, right? Because in order to search something from a database, I need to know that for which person I'm searching for, right? At least I need a email or object ID so that I can search in my database along with that, right? So I need a certain information about the person, because Devansh is a different person, Shironi is a different person, they have a different object ID, they will have a different name, different email ID, right? And whatever the request that you are making, that will be mapped by those things, that okay, you are searching, but searching for this particular person only. So you need to send few information from the client side to the backend side in order to retrieve some data which is specific to that person only, right? So how you can send? So in get request, we can send by two things. First is query and second is params. Okay, let's not do this way. You guys will get confused. Okay. So just I'm writing how you can send few information. So let's say I was writing AccuJob, then gym, and at the gym I am solving a particular question. So how I can define that question is I can provide a question mark, and then I can send. So what this question mark does, this question marks brings you a key value pair. So there will be a key value pair that you can send, a key value pair. So how you can write here, let's say a question number, you can write here this way, question, right? And then along with that, you can send whatever the, like, let's say means there will be certain object ID or something, right? So 249 something something. So you can send, this will be your key and this will be your value. So this is what key value means, right? So earlier, if you're making any request on, let's say /gym, so that is a static request. We just, I will write here earlier that we were request that we were making, let's say all of these requests, were the static requests. There was nothing dynamic. So for profile, for gem, everything will be same for everyone. Means the functions that you're calling here, nothing is dynamic, right? But now I need a question which needs to be a dynamic, right? Because every person is clicking on a different question. Every question is mapped with different object IDs or anything, right? So now this is different. So you can have a key is going to be same, that okay, you have to write every time with question only. You cannot write like this questions, you cannot put a s, you cannot make any other difference, but you can make a difference here, you can make a difference on this particular side, right? So let's say you are making a request at any request that you are making and you were checking that is safe or not or anything, right? So any request that you are sending, you can send a key and value pair along with that. And also you can send multiple key value pair. For that you can put and sign. So let's say this was my key 1 and value 1, and then you can send key 2 and value 2. So don't worry, we will see everything in like implementation part from tomorrow, these things also, right? Because I'm not going the implementation right now, because we don't know right now the REST and the REST APIs, the methods there, that's why. So value 2, so this is the way that you can send. So what we call this thing as query, that we are sending something dynamic. These are the dynamic routes, and we are sending the queries into that. The another way of sending is some information. You can create a parameter as by params. So what it means, params means nothing. Let's say I was searching for this thing, AQ job slash let's say module slash DSA 1, right? So this DSA 1 will be specific. If you are a module student and you are clicking on your module, so if you are enrolled in DSA 1, DSA will be open. For someone else, DSA 2 will be open. Someone else, Node.js will open, right? So this is a different, but how it is different from query? In query, you have to like provide a question mark, but here we are writing just DSA 1 and DSA 2 after this forward slash. So how we going to handle these things? So this is what you call as dynamic IDs, right? So parameters, these are the parameters that you are passing params, and you, if you want to handle these particular routes, let's say this is my endpoint, right? This is my endpoint. And how I'm going to handle this thing? By writing this slash module and slash double colon, sorry, single colon, and then you can write ID. So now if this particular part is changing every time, right? I'm not sure about that. So that will be handled by this thing, because each and everything you have to write in the same way. If you want to handle this particular thing, you have to write this particular endpoint here. You cannot change a single word. You cannot put any other word if you need to map those things. But here, these are the things that are dynamic, and I'm not sure that I'm not gonna create, if I have, let's say, 50 modules, I'm not gonna create a 50 modules and each of them are doing the same thing, right? They're retrieving the data, like your module wala page. The module wala page is going to be open for you guys, right? So uh, each function is doing the same thing, only the parameters is changing. That's why we have this dynamic params, or you can say dynamic handling in nature. So along with this ID, you are sending a variable name. So there are two ways that you can send. First is the query and another is the params. Just give me a second. I have a particular place where I can show you some things. Yeah. Okay, we are covered with anything. Is anything left? Authentication is nothing, just okay, I'll tell you guys was authentication, but before that I want to show you guys, like, we can play along with this thing. So this is a particular like joke API documentation. So nothing, just a bit of a bit to understand what this API means, right? So how the queries and parameters work. So let's say if I hit a particular URL, so let's say this is my URL, right? If I send a request at this particular place, they are saying miscellaneous. Okay, I have selected. Let's remove these things. One or more specific period world. So let's try to hit this from the normal URL. Okay, so see, they are saying if you want a particular type of character category of a joke, so I selected any joke. I can have any jokes, right? So if I try to hit this URL, I'll get one. So you can see that they are sending me a category of jokes is programming. They're saying, why did the Python data scientist get arrested at customs? She was caught trying to import pandas. So this is a joke. If you get it, you get it. Otherwise, I cannot explain this. So right now I have selected on any, and they have just sent me any kind of joke. Now I can play along with different things. So let's make this custom. So I have selected a custom. Let's say Christmas joke, right? So now you can see joke slash Christmas हो गया अब. So if you send a request, यहाँ पे काम नहीं कर रहा है, open ही हमें करना पड़ेगा URL. So slash Christmas, you'll get a Christmas joke. Ki what Santa's favorite type of music is rap. So you can see earlier it was joke slash any, now it was joke slash Christmas. So this part, this is dynamic. They have not defined a particular route for it. They have just written colon ID for it, and every time that you are making a request, so what they'll do, they'll categorize. You are sending a information that what is the category of a joke. They will take this part and they will search accordingly in the database and then providing you that information. Let's try to do something else. Christmas English, we need to like blacklist kar dete hain. NSFW non safe for workplace, I think. So if you see, when I click on this particular blacklist, so this was a flag, this was a category, and this is a kind of a flag. So now I'm getting, let's say I want a programming joke as well. So along with Christmas, I need a programming joke. Let's remove this. So here, if two dynamic parameters you need to pass, by comma you can pass, right? And now I want something to be some jokes which are safe for workplaces. So now in the question mark, you can see a key value pair has generated, which is blacklist flag. Matlab just blacklist these category of flags which is not safe for work. You can have multiple, let's say religious jokes chahiye mujhe. So NFS and religious, I think these are ors. These that you're putting, these are or. If you need to send any other, like, just a second. When you are sending a blacklist flag for one key value, you are sending one value for it, right? Let's search this. So this is right now, this is my one key value pair, right? One key value pair. So right now I have make a request on, I need a programming. It could be programming or a Christmas joke, and blacklist kar diya hai NSFW ko. So I get a joke. So why are assembly programmer always soaking wet? They work below sea level. So this was a nice one. So right now, as you can see, I have only provided one category of it. But if I want to provide multiple value for this key only, so what I can do, I can provide with a comma. So now I'm sending one key and two values. But if you need multiple key value pairs, what you can do is, let's try to, yeah, let's see, I send another type of key value pair. So I put a %. So for one key, one value could be there. Multiple values you can send by comma. So let's say this religious. So you can send that by this particular thing, and you want to send another key value pair. So you can put %. Here it is very useful. So if you even see this particular place, Zoom wala URL dekho, post attendee means the attendee, they're talking about me, that was my ID or something, question mark, this is the key value MN. They have like used this for some particular thing, I don't know, and this is my value, this is the key value for it, right? So this is important by sending the information from the queries and parameters, right? So if you try to search like this particular URL, which is very big, but they have not written a route to handle this particular thing, but everything here is dynamic single. So yeah, you get a category of a joke along with that. So now you can like play along with this particular website in order to understand, not in the class, but after the class you can. Okay. So in order to understand that how this query and parameters are working, right? So yeah, I just want to give you a visual representation of it. So that's all. coming back to this place, what we have covered is right now, we have covered endpoint, we have covered path, we have covered parameters. Now authentication part is. So now just remember one thing, that whatever the route that you are creating, that's open to all. That is open to all. So if you have written this particular request, let's say this, let's say they have also written these requests now, these URLs, these are opens to all. I do not have to authorize it myself. I'm not logged in with any authentication system, and it is open to all, right? So whatever the request that you are creating, if your domain ID is known, then anyone can make a request on that particular thing. But we do not want that. Why? Let's say take an example of AccuJob itself. So once you want to go to a gym section or to a module section, these are the authenticated routes. These are the authenticated routes. So in APIs, you can make them. Basically, APIs are of two type. One is API is of two type. One is public, another is private, right? So public is available, let's say the home page. No, not the home page, the login page, the login or the registration, the sign up page, right? So these are the public routes. So they are not authenticated. You do not have to be authenticated in order to send this. But those routes, let's say the gym page, the module page, or the profile page, these are something that is a restricted data. That is a restricted data, and I do not want anyone to manipulate these APIs, right? So what I need to do, I can give a provision in my APIs that some tokens, some API keys. Okay, API keys, you guys have heard about as of now API keys, right? So by using these things, you are making those route authenticated, that okay, everyone cannot access this, only you are allowed to use if you have this API key. There is session cookie, session ID. Have you guys heard about this session or session ID? That once you are logged in, a session ID is generated, right? So that session ID help you to have the information of the restricted data. So once you make a request, let's say right now you are a user but you are not logged in or sign up in a particular account, you first created a registration, then when you're trying to log in for the first time, a session ID is generated, that is stored on your side, on the client side, right? Then every time you make another request, all the requests that you are making when you have this session ID or this API keys, that means you are an authenticated person and you are going to authenticated routes only. So I'm not going to tell you how you can make your routes authenticated right now, because in I think next to next lecture we're going to do that. But you should know that okay, there will be two categories of routes. One will be the public, one will be the private, and you have to put your focus here in the private ones. The reason being, all of the industry, you cannot open your startup. If you're doing in a startup, if you're working in some way, you cannot like make some route which are not authenticated, which are the user can have an access with that easily, right? So that's not a right way of doing the work. This is important. So I think now I have covered these 4 points. The endpoint path and parameters and authentication, right? So किसी को कोई issue है इस इन चारों में, let me know. All clear, guys? Please write in the chat if yes. If you have a doubt, please write also. Okay, just a second. Yeah, now this is all about the API. I have just broke down the API wala part. Now we will have a look over what is web APIs and then the REST API wala part. थोड़ा सा overwhelming हो सकता है, like what is web API and all of this stuff. Don't get confused. At any point, if you feel to ask any question, please let me know. Okay. So what is web API? So we have like in this term, it contains of two words, right? Web API. We have understood what is API. Now we're gonna understand what is the category of web API. That's all. So again, it's the same thing. Client, server, making a request, getting information back, right? They're sending a request in certain format, right? And that means there is a difference in web or in REST, whatever they are. There are certain kind of difference will always be there. So how they send information, what protocols they are using, these are the differences. If you want to create a like high complex architectural structure, or you just want a normal architectural structure, so what should you use? These are the on this basis they are differentiated. So let's just I'm just going to write the definition of these things. So web API, you can that can be accessed like over the web using HTTP protocol. So they are using HTTP, along with that they are using URL protocol. So web API uses okay, HTTP and URL protocol to access over the internet, to have access over net or anything, right? So these are the two protocols, HTTP and URL protocol, right? The next thing is this is the major advantage of web API is it is an open source. So it is an open source framework. Okay, because like this is a very important thing, where that's if someone was developing this tool, why they have created this open source. Because if let's think of a scenario, if they have not created this APIs as an open source, so just think, you can make your server client, you can make your server, but you cannot communicate between them. If you want to communicate, you have to pay for that in order to use that tool. So how many development that we're seeing nowadays in this software development phase, it won't be possible in web3 in web2 especially. So web1 was a kind of a static phase. Web2 is somewhere when you were making your website more interactive, right? Web2 is this phase where you were having the cloud system, where you are having a machine learning system, recommendation based system. Everything on your websites are more interactive, right? So this is what web2 is all about. So that won't be possible if this source is not free. All the MNCs, all the basically the big MNCs, the player of that, the big developers there, they are aware of these things. So whatever they create, they try to make these kind of things open source. Think of an API like Google API, Google Maps API, right? So Google have a satellite over our orbits, and they are paying for everything. They are paying the developers to create those APIs, and they have like given this particular APIs for free to everyone. So for other persons to develop more and more things, right? So that is an important aspect of the development, that few of these things here are open source, and that is very important. And you can use web APIs on the technologies like you can uh, developers can build technologies like .NET, Java, etc. So on the if you're using these type of technologies, you can use web API. So there is a distinction that you should know, that whether to use what. Also, this can be like, you can make a request for these particular things from any device that you have. Let's say if it is a browser or a mobile or tablets, anything, whether Android. So from means web API working on these particular things, right? And one more thing, just a second, just give me a second. Okay, sorry. Yeah, so web APIs are basically follows one thing, that is basically it follows a restful state. So they help in implementation of restful web services. So what do you mean by restful? Anyone have any idea about this? What is restful? Okay, so restful is you can think it of more as a architectural constraint. When I say architectural constraint, there is no definition of it. Some countries constraints that you're putting over your architecture, so you can develop that into a certain form, that what form that you want. So let's say in React, if you're developing everything on your React side, so it has some states, right? Some components will have a state, or this whole page have a particular state, right? So that state is not going to be stored on the server. If that is my server, so this state not going to store the state of client, so that is what statelessness or restful means. Okay, you can say this term as statelessness, and statelessness is one of the property of restful, or you can say this is the same thing, just an architectural constraint that you're putting while developing your architecture, that okay, your server is not going to store the information, not the information, sorry, the state of the client, right? So that's all statelessness or restful means. uh on If you try to like Google it on the net, you will not get any definition, a proper definition of it. It just means an architectural constraint that you're putting for what, to provide the client state, in order to you do not want to save that on your server side, right? That's all. So yeah, that was all about the web APIs. I just recap these things. It uses HTTP and URL protocol to have access over the internet, or to send data from the client to the server. It's an open source project, and you can with the help of web APIs, you can develop .NET or Java applications. Java especially, that means Spring Boot, that you are working as a backend developer, and browser, mobile, tablet, iOS, Android. From everywhere you can make web APIs, and they help us to implement the RESTful web services. What is RESTful? Basically, the server is not storing the information about the client, or you can say, and putting an architectural constraint on the there are two type of web APIs, or you can say REST types, or the way you develop your APIs. One is REST and another is SOAP. So SOAP is something which is old, and REST is new. And for REST APIs, just a second. I don't know. I'm getting few messages from my background. Just give me a second. Okay, sorry for that. Yeah, REST is what have a restful state, right? Means it provides what it does. It gives an architectural constraint to your web services, and SOAP is nothing. It stand for simple object access protocol. Simple access. Simple object access protocol. Object access protocol. So these are the category of APIs. One is the REST, another is the SOAP. How they difference? Basically, the way they send the information. So they are sending, this SOAP sends an information more or less in the form of an object, and REST sends an information more or less in the form of a JSON, right? So there is a difference between JavaScript and object and a JSON. Are you guys aware of this? Like, what is JSON and what is JavaScript object? every time if you look at those things, they will be something like in curly brackets, there will be one key, let's say name, and here let's say my current name is there, right? So this is also you have seen as a JavaScript object, and similarly, like very much similar, this will be the JSON format if you put a quote here also, right? So if you need to send information, JSON is used by REST. SOAP is something that you sends data in the form of an object, right? So they have these two differences. This is old, SOAP is old, which right now I don't think any APIs uses, but you should be aware of this particular term, simple object access protocol. Nowadays REST is something which is more in of use, right? Just a second. Okay, we have covered what is web API. So anyone of you have any issue with this part? Web API in any definition, anything that you are not able to understand, or anything I want to repeat? So we use web API to build REST APIs. No, actually, Jeruni, there is a clear-cut difference between those two things. Web APIs are different, REST APIs are different. We're gonna learn the first REST API, and then we're gonna see the comparison between both of them. So web uses certain protocol, REST uses certain. The way they send the data, they are a bit different. So they are the two different things. 5.5, okay. So basically they help to implement a RESTful web services. So REST and SOAP are the two category of web services that you can think of. So they, as a web API, they help us to implement RESTful web services, and REST API also help us to implement RESTful web services. So they both are same in this category, that they are helping us to build these kind of web services. Now, what they mean. So RESTful web services means that you're sending a data, I think like in the format of JSON, XML, text, image, HTML, right? Or it means that you're putting a architectural constraint. What I means by architectural constraint, that the way you are developing your APIs, the way you are developing your APIs is limited to a constraint that you're not allowing to go beyond this, right? That think of a way that client, you were on a browser, let's say on e-commerce platform, you put something inside your cart, right? So right now the information about that you have something inside your cart, or let's say you have you are trying to search for something. Basically cart information is something that browser stored on your cache, in the cache memory, this is stored, right? So you have a certain state right now. Let's say you open a payment gateway and you are in between certain information that you have put on, so that is also a certain state. There will be a state of components, right? So all those informations, either the component information, the cart information, they will be stored on the client side, means browser side. So these type of information are stored on the cache memory, on browser cache memory, on sessions, cookies, or local memory. If you go here, let me open this and Google Chrome. If I show you guys here in the inspect network in application, I think you will be able to see in application, you can see there are certain a storage, a certain memory, very small memory. It might be, I think, 6 to 8 MB, not more than that. So very small MB is dedicated to your browser. Okay, so it has local storage, and it has session, it has cookies that you can store. So these are the certain kind of storage that you can store here. Right now you can see nothing is there, but if you logged in some places, or if you do anything, this memory will be take place, right? If you, let's say you have opened a Akijo platform now, if you try to look at this place, there will be some memory, I think. Let's see. And inspect, go to your applications and storage. So you can see 614 MB have been utilized for out of this particular MB. Okay. I was thinking it was more small. So this was the total storage that has been allocated to my Brave by my RAM, that this memory can be used by this particular place, right? So all of the information. Now, what is the state? A state means that, okay, let's say I am logged in right now, okay, and I am on the, let's say I am on modules page. Okay, I have opened this particular thing, and there will be some question I'm solving that. So these state of the components, the state of your memory, whether on which place you are, what components you have opened, that will only be known by the client side. It is not going to be stored, the information, just a second, that is not going to store the information on the backend side. Can we do that? Just think of an architecture where e- every component information, every state, you guys have learned React, na? There is states, right? You use state hook. So whatever the state that you are giving to particular component, let's say I'm sending that information to the backend, that okay, right now the person is there, these are the component information, this is the particular state right now, and then do the relevant stuff right now. So that's what I'm not doing. The state of the component will be stored or will be stayed here on the client side only. That will not come here on the server side. So that what it means, that okay, you have put some architectural constraint that a state cannot be transferred from the client to the server. So server is not going to store the state of the client. And there are a bit more constraints in the RESTful web services, that in certain format only you can send the data, right? So these are the architectural constraint, what it means by the RESTful web services. Am I like, are you understood now, Jeroen and everyone? No, we uses web and REST APIs to build RESTful web services, but there are different categories of services which create SOAP, like simple object access protocol, created by some other, and that is, I think, SOAP APIs ही होता है उसका नाम. Let me search and tell you guys. SOAP API. SOAP API example. Let me just give me a second. Okay, I'm not able to find the name that help us to create SOAP APIs, but if you search SOAP APIs, they are different from the rest, right? So SOAP APIs is a different category. We're gonna not touch that in this particular whole journey, or while you are like become a developer. Thing that you are dealing with is RESTful web services. Now, RESTful web services can be created by Web API and REST API. SOAP will be created by some other APIs. I think the name of that is SOAP API itself, or something like that. I'm not remembering right now. Okay, Shironi. Okay. Everyone else understood this point? Okay. Let's have a break right now. Okay. For 15 minutes, because we have covered quite a few things. After that, there will be certain things that why we uses, what are the famous web application, web APIs, and after that, REST APIs cover करते हैं. Then we will wind up. ठीक है? Means comparison देख के कर लेंगे. So let's have a break. Right now it's 35, 40 to 50. So up to 9:50. Okay. Works fine for everyone. Okay, great. Just be in the meet, don't leave it, and then we'll catch up. Okay, everyone back. Everyone is here. What about others? Please let me know in the chat. Devansh, Lenson, Mukul. Okay, great. Okay. Okay, so now the things that we're gonna cover is I think I have mentioned here in the starting that why we need web APIs, like how you can use that and some of the popular web APIs, right? So for that, I'm gonna give you guys a URL through which you can read, because writing the same definition again won't make sense. So because I have explained you what web APIs basically means, so this is the GFG link. What are the things important for you guys is to understand this part. Why to use a web API means not important, but like to differentiate between the things that okay, why we are using web APIs, right? And then this part, step to use web APIs, that how you can use, and some of the popular. So I'll quickly go through that why to basically way to use web API, where you want to create RESTful web services for .NET framework or for Java, right? And where you need to develop an HTTP services, where only the HTTP services or the protocol is going to be used. Something called MVC structure, where you require an application to be developed with an MVC structure. So right now you guys will get confused with this MVC, what it means, but whatever the project that we're gonna make, that will follow a MVC structure format, right? So don't worry about that, you can skip that as of now. With Ajax, okay, so hence a way make easier for the developer to develop this ASAP.NET, basically all the frameworks with .NET. So whatever you are developing with that for any devices like browser or any tablet or anything, they are compatible with that. So this is the place where you should use web API. And why to use a web API? So a web API is a services which is like prefer where you want to create an RESTful, or you can say REST APIs instead of a SOAP APIs. So that does not support SOAP, means all those architecture, all those technologies which do not support SOAP, uh, all those at every place you can use web APIs, right? So that is one of the main advantages, and SOAP is something that is not supported by the latest technology, right? So why to use it is the very important questions. And then if you are creating a resource by, like, let's say for creating a resource oriented services, the web API services are the best to choose. Okay, and by using HTTP or RESTful services, the services are established. So again, the same thing. If you want to create any, means the advantages of HTTP or RESTful services, if you want to achieve that, you can use web API. For that, you can use REST API as well, right? So this is one of the advantages, or you can say the differentiating criteria. If you want a good performance and a fast development of services, this API is very useful. Okay, like no need to explain anything. If you want a nice performance in the fast development, you can use that particular API. And for developing a lightweight and maintainable web services, now this is important to understand, and this is going to be a key differentiator between the web API and the REST API, that light-weighted architecture, whatever that you are creating, the architecture, if that is light-weighted, simple, at those places we can use web services, right? But if it is complex or something, then you should use REST API. So one of the main differentiator, right? The device that have a tight bandwidth or having a limitation of bandwidth, then the web API services are best for those devices. Now you can also understand one more thing, that okay, you have a limitation over the bandwidth, right? Whatever the data that you are sending, receiving, or how many operations computational power you need for dealing with those APIs, at how many at which rate you are making the request, right? If that is very less, then you should use web APIs. So these are the places why to use web APIs. Again, I'll repeat again. So at those places where your native application does not support SOAP, so at these places you can use web APIs. and these are the advantages. If you need the advantages for the RESTful services, then you can use Web API. Basically, if you want to create a RESTful services, you can use Web API. And if you want a good performance and fast development, then also for lightweight and maintainable web services, easy to maintain, easy to develop, lightweight, easy architecture, then you can use Web API. If you have a low bandwidth, then you can use Web API. So these what it means by way to use Web API. I think it is clear for you guys why to use Web API. Let me know in the chat. Any doubt in these points? Okay, now we will come how to use, or you can say step of using a web APIs. Okay, so basically they will very simple है, इसमें पढ़ने की भी जरूरत नहीं है. 3 points, these are the similarly key. First, you will register yourself at those services. They will provide you an API key, right? So the API key is required. So whatever the request that you are making, that you should have that API key so that you can get information. And the next thing is HTTP protocol basically lies a connection. So first a connection will be made. You make a request with the API in your request, and then HTTP will rely the connection so that you can share the information, and then it will validate your API key. So first a connection will take place, then the sharing of the data will take place. And inside that you can send your API key to validate, and then you can hit those APIs of the web services by anything. Like you can create a front end for that, or you can you can use a Postman. So any of you are aware of this Postman, what this Postman is? So Postman is for testing the APIs, right? So we are like the first to-do app that we're going to create, with certain kind of a UI. But later on, the main blogging application that we're going to create, there we will not have any kind of a UI or any front end. We are only dealing with the Postman and the backend part. That's all. So we're going to see Postman in depth. Don't worry. So the first thing, generate the API key, then build the HTTP connection, then you can send the data, and then you can try hit your those kind of an web services with front end or the client side that you can create, or the Postman. So you can create any REST client. React is one of that, and you can use I think y- uh, have you guys make any project related to APIs, anything? So how you are making a request? Are you guys using the Axios or Fetch? There are two things then that you can use, Fetch or Axios. Fetch. Okay, so you guys are aware. So Fetch is something which is present in the React along with the JavaScript embedded in that you can use to make RESTful web services, or you can say REST APIs. So that React is a REST client. The UI that you have created is a REST client. Okay. So yeah, that is all how you can use that thing. And talking about the popular web APIs, that is, they are saying Google APIs, Google Map APIs. We know that is very famous APIs. YouTube API, Twitter APIs are there. I think Netflix APIs are also there for movies and all. Expedia APIs are also there for hotels and chain. Then I think this what you uses for backend. I forget the name of it. When you were creating a client project and you uses a Google tool for the backend. It is a Google tool. I forget the name of it. Firebase. It has been created by the Google now. So that is basically a replica of your backend part. It will deal with your services and the database, right? So they also provide you the web APIs, and I think new developers, those who learn the React part or the client side, they get some interaction with Firebase also. So that is also one of the famous ones. So these are the web services that you can use, right? So any doubt, anyone in this part, why to choose, how we can like the step to use and the popular web APIs, any issue with this? Because I thought writing the same thing on the whiteboard and then explaining would take pretty much time. So why not to save those time and explain from here only? So this is a very good documentation that you can refer for the one time only. You don't have to put a lot of emphasis on this, that you need to learn, remember each and every term, logic and everything. Just get yourself aware with that. Right. So let's move to the rest wala part now. So if I get like access for the WhatsApp or Discord somewhere, so I will provide you guys the notes and everything. But right now I'm gonna paste this link here so that anyone can have an access to that. Okay, so here we have why, how, and popular web APIs. Popular web APIs in this particular link that you can follow. Okay. Moving forward to the rest part now. Okay. So REST API. Important things first. What it means is representational state transfer. Representational state transfer. So this is what REST stand for. You can create these kind of services with web APIs, but the need where it changes, that some of the things that differ between REST and web, so that your need also changes, and where we can use REST, we're gonna see that. So basically, what these are REST also. You can say a subset of, or you can say one of the categories of APIs only, by the same or more or less same categories of web APIs, but there will be some changes, right? So let's see that. Okay, the protocol that it follows for the connection is HTTP. The web was using HTTP and URL protocol. It only uses HTTP protocol, HTTP hypertext transfer protocol, for transformation of data, for laying the connection first and then the transformation of data. Transformation of data. This is comparatively simple to use as compared to the web APIs. Means the syntax, the terminologies are simple here. So it is very simple and flexible web service. Flexible web service. Right. Then REST that I have explained again and again, it's nothing, just for the complex architecture that puts some constraint for the web services. So REST is for complex architecture. That one is for easy architecture, right? I think I do not have to like specifically explain you everything while we were doing the comparison, but right now also we can see what are the difference between these two. But I'll compute those things inside the point. So REST is for complex architecture that define a set of constraint for web services. So when we were talking about representational state transfer, that means you are putting certain constraint over the web services, over the architecture that you are making, right? So always remember a set of constraint for the web services. If we are talking about this, that means we are talking about the REST. If we are talking about the easy architecture, that means we are talking about the web. If complex, then it is a REST. So that is what it means. Now we will see that how it works and the format of data that it sends. If you get any doubt, please write in the chat. We will see. So let's say this is my client, right? It sends a request. Send request. Now again, we require two things. First is okay, we'll come to that. Let's say this is my server, and it will send back the response, right? Send the response. So here we differentiate the things, that is basically in web APIs also you have other requests also, but let's say, but there's no way of defining that, right? So when you are using the HTTP APIs, right, we will see when we were dealing with the files manager, we will create a another kind of an server, will be a node server, but not with the help of an express, but there we will create HTTP APIs, not REST APIs. So there we will see that there is no way of defining the different kind of methods. Right now all the requests that you send, they need to define the method. That means get, this is a method, right? And then a endpoint, right? This is important to identify on which particular endpoint or which function you're trying to invoke, right? So right now it is not there. Right now it is not there. Just give me a second. Okay. Yeah. So coming back to here, yeah. So here we define while sending the request the method also. There's no way that to segregate. Now talking about this method, okay, the way you can send a data is you can send an HTML, you can send an XML, you can send image, right? You can send, I think, JSON as well, right? So these are the type of thing that you can send. Also I think you can transfer the data in the form of SOAP, because this is an protocol and REST is an architectural structure, right? So here also you can send the data in the SOAP format, but this is not utilized. More or less either you are using an HTML, JSON or image or something, right? So this is what we uses in order to respond back. So you can, these are the type of data or the category of things that you can send with the things now. So yeah, this is the basic architecture. Client send a request. In request you have to define two things: the method and the endpoint, right? These are the two things that you need to define. And then there will be a handler for that on the backend part, which will handle that particular request. If it is not there, there will be an error, right? And then you can respond it back, and you can send furthermore data in the form of either HTML, XML, image, JSON, or SOAP also, right? So these are how REST is working, right? But now we'll see the method wala part, which is important. And I haven't used anything right now, like any terms instead of just get requests. So we will go one by one into the depth of it. So the 5 methods that we have, first is the get method, the REST uses. The second is the post. These methods are also present inside the web APIs also, right? But there is no way of differentiating it. There will be a way, we will see how. But whatever the request that we have defined for one endpoint, every request will go to that particular place only. And either it's a get request, post request, and everything, one handler will be there. And inside that, if you're writing a function, then what you'll do, you'll put a if else condition there, that okay, whether it's a what is the method of that request. So all the requests that you are making, that will be at the same place. So you cannot differentiate on the basis of uh methods, right? But while you invoke the method, you can differentiate on the basis of Okay, I got disconnected. Sorry for that. Okay. Am I audible to you guys? Let me know if the screen is visible now. Hello, hello, hello. Am I audible? Okay, screen is also visible, right? Okay. Okay, so yeah, we were talking about this web API and the REST API development part. No? So there in the web API, just as of now, don't get confused that how you're going to do that. Just make sure one thing that there will be one router, one handler for all the requests, all the type of requests that you are making. But for here, we have, let's say, we have get, post, we have put, we have patch, and we have delete. These are the 5 methods of REST API that you can create. But in web APIs, there will be only one place to handle each and every one of that. Inside that, you can write if else conditions. But for this particular like REST API, you have to write something like app.get, app.post, or app. Let's say put, and let's say they are all for same routes. Let's say /login, right? This one is also for /login. So you are writing different routes but with the same endpoint, so their methods are different, right? So this is why we are creating a different a heavy architecture. This is basically for the heavy architecture where your design, your server is big, right? You need to handle a lot of things there. That's why you're differentiating, you're breaking down each and everything, right? But here all the requests, whether they are of any category, but they are having this particular endpoint, they will go there, right? And inside that you are putting if else that's what we mean, right? So now let's look at this methods. Let me know if my voice is okay or not. Is it lagging? I can feel that. Is my voice is lagging, guys? Okay, I think this UI is lagging. Okay, so one by one, we're gonna go into this particular methods. Just a second. So this is important for you guys to understand, and I want you guys to like memorize this thing here. So first is, let's say, the get request. So it is the HTTP get request, the HTTP get request, which is used only for read operations, only for read. Okay, this is the method that we're using only for read. That let's say I want to search for google.com. Okay, let's go here and www dot, let's open the inspect, and on the network tabs I'll show you guys. I am writing what google.com. So I think now, just a second, it was not there. It's Yahoo now. Inspect network. By default, I think my Chrome has been changed. So just give me a second. Yeah. So these are the requests that has been made, and it's a lot of request. Okay, let me show you for AccuJob. Let's see. Can we do for the YouTube? Yeah. Now you guys can see the first request which was made was this youtube.com, and then you can see it was a get request. The method of it was a get request. Similarly, I can show you guys for Google, but I don't know why it's not coming. www dot google. Okay, okay. Let's try to hit this. Yeah, the first request that we made is google.com. So the DNS was first take place that, okay, it is going to resolve this particular URL. I think the IP address is also somewhere mentioned here. Okay, remote address. I think, yeah, this is the remote address of this google.com, if I'm not wrong. And then it's making a get request at this particular place. So what you're doing, you're just reading right now. You cannot make any differences right now. So you cannot update any information, you cannot delete any information, you are just making a get request. So any request that we are making for this particular URL is that will be a get request every time. You have to remember this. Post put request can be made with the help of code, with the help of a postman, right? So for only read purpose, we are using get, and then what is happening, it is returning either 200 status code that everything is okay, page not found. These, if you're searching for a page, right, all the pages for a website, everything that you do is a get request. So how it is taking place is, let's say this was my client, you make a request for the get, and then there will be my server that, okay, you need a home page. Let's say you need a home page, so there will be /home route for that. Okay, and there will be function return for that. So my function is doing what, reading from the database, and if the files are present there, if the files should present here, wherever they are present, read from there, return the information back. Okay, so this is what get information is doing. So in get, you can only send the information in only one way, and I have taught you guys that. So if you're making a get request but you also want to share some data, the only way of doing that is with the help of a query and params. Okay, so by these two things you can share some information, but you cannot send a body of information or something which is more than that. For that we have a post request. So let's move further to the post request. The post one. So this is the HTTP request that we use for creating a new resource. Always remember, not creating a resource, for creating a new resource. The post will use to create a new request. A new request. Okay. So how it gonna do that? Basically, again, you from the client, you send a post request, the server will handle that. All now, what you can do, you can send furthermore information. So let's say this was my client, and there was a form which contains my name and my email, my password, right? This is the registration, or you can say sign up page, right? This is the sign up page. Once I click on the submit button, so what will happen is you click on this, Axios or a fetch request will take place, and these information will be sent to the backend part. Now, most of the time we send the information in the body of a request, whatever the API that we uses, we send the information in the body. So API structure is something like it's have a header, and the header is body, other is body, right? So we have seen that here. Once we were making the request, that you can say this was the header part, response header part, and there will be a body. But right now we are not sending anything inside the body, so it is not here. But we can see that one while we were developing that, and see what you are seeing in response. You are seeing an HTML page in response. So once we were talking about that, you can send HTML pages also. So this is what have been returned to me as an HTML page in the response, right? And then that HTML page come to my browser. It creates its own DOM structure, and then it resolves and it pages this browser page, right? This is how it's happened. You can see the preview of this page. The preview of page is something like this. So that's how it is working. Okay, and it contains header. Either you can send the information in the headers. So if you're sending, let's say, query and param, so that is in the header part. Okay, any authorization token, API key, bearer token, everything inside the header, but the body contains the data. The body contains these kind of in data, right? So let's say if you're using a JSON format of sending a data, so it will be something like this, object structure which contain my name. My name will be there, my email, my password will be there, right? Now I have sent this particular request, and then there will be this response to me. Sorry, this is my server. So now what the server is going to do, there will be a dot post API for this handler. So let's say slash sign up. So this will be my slash sign up, and then there will be a function doing dealing with that, right? So now what I want to create a new information. So get information, it can read from the database, but now you can write inside a database. So I will write this thing early above here. It was just a read operation. So it should not be both way. It should be only this way, that you are reading. Okay. You cannot write anything. Here you can read and write as well. Both of the things you can do. So read, write, both of the things on the database. So now this information will get saved here inside my database. Inside, if it is a mongoose, so in the form of an JSON format. If it is a MySQL, then in the form of a table, right? So that can be stored here. Then I will send back, let's say, the status code of 201, so or 200, that everything works fine. Okay, no issues with this, so everything works fine. So this is the post request. Now the same person cannot register himself again, because in the database an ID, object ID has been generated with the name of that person, right? So if that person is creating information for the first time, or you can say creating a new object, a new entry inside the database, we use this put. But let's say if you say ki sir, now we have to update, we have to change few fields, so then you can make a post request, and inside that you can do your functionality wala part with the help of mongoose. But there are other APIs for that as well that you can use. So those APIs will be put and patch, put and patch. So there will be say they both have been used to update, right? To update the information, both of them, and inside the database. Just a second. But there will be a distinction between both of them, like put and patch. Both तो हम use कर रहे हैं, but difference क्या है put patch में? तो अगर सिर्फ update ही करना था तो why we are not using one of that? So there is a difference. Let's say in my database, one object like JSON format, let's assume this is a mongoose database, and in JSON format my information are stored. So there will be my object ID, right? So this will be certain kind of a string. Then my name was there, that is also a string. My password, that is also a string, and my email will there, right? These are the information that I have stored inside a database. So object ID will always be different. It will be a primary key, right? So it is going to be different. Email is something that is going to be unique every time. So now what I want is put and patch, both of them can be used to update the fields. But let's say I just want to update one field. Okay. So what at that particular place I am going to use patch. So what put do? Put is going to check first whether that database or that entry has been created or not. If it is created, that it is going to update each and every field. So if you want to update, like just instead of object ID, if you want to create name, password, email, a new, every field should be new, then you should use put. If let's say you are using a put request, but you are trying to update only password, so what will happen is it is going to update these two fields as well with null values, right? So if you just want to like update one or two fields or just one field, then it is always good to use patch, because what put is going to do, put is going to update other fields as well. If you are not provided those information, then it is going to put null for that. So what you can do, like have those information and then update the whole along with that particular field. That's what you can do. But if you want to update only one field, then you should use patch. So patch is going to make the other field, so this field and this field remains same, it is not going to change, and you can just only update the password here, right? So here you can write this will update each and every field, each and every field inside the database, and this will only update the password field. Okay, so that is the difference. So put and patch, both of them are using for the updation of this. So you can think put is for whole, this is for whole entry. This is my entry, it has, let's say, 10-15 fields. So if you want to update each and every one of them, you can use put request. But if you want to update few fields only or one feature only, then you can use patch field. So that's the main difference between them. Understood everyone, what is the put and patch and how they are different from each other? Clear, everyone? Okay, fine. So as of now, we have studied get, post, and put and patch. So I think 3 and 4th has been covered. Post is for creating a new resource, and get for reading the resource, and put was first it will check whether the entry was there or not. If it is there, then it will update each and every field of that. Okay, and patch, it will not check whether the data is already there or not. It is directly going to update the field that you have defined. So very narrow down API or a method, you can say. The last one is that I think the delete. So I think it is, you guys should not be like get confused what delete do. So delete is basically for deleting the entry. If you want to delete certain entry, you can use app.delete method. But one more thing that I want to like show you guys, that either you want to create, I'm not going to explain this again, like delete is just delete for deleting purpose, right? But let's say if you want to create, if you want to update, or if you want to delete something, right? For three of them you can use post method. Okay, so you can use post. The reason being, post help us to send the information or the data inside the body. You can send the information and put patch and delete also inside the body, right? In the get request we were sending that information only in like header part, query and params, but here you can in the post you can send the information in query, params and body, right? This is the difference. So once the body is also getting a data, so now what I have to do, I can use mongoose or mongodb functions. Like database have its function, SQL have its own queries to create a table, right? To create a new entry, to update some field, right? So whatever you want to do, you can perform that with the help of our database management system. The only need that I have is to send the information inside a body. There will be a lot of body information, so I can send that inside a body. So for everything, for creating you can use post, for update also you can use a post, and for deletion also you can use post. So most of the time you will see only post. Very less time you are using some you will use only one, like patch or put something. But if you want to create anything, delete anything, update anything, you can use post. But you should be aware of these things as well. Okay, ठीक है. So that's all about the REST APIs, right? REST API is nothing, same as web API. We have seen the different, like the protocol it uses. We will see the comparison between these two things. So the main part is the method wala part. So these are the 5 method. I think if it is clear, if you guys have any doubt, please write in the chat. I will cater that. Now let's come back to the comparison. So just a second. Comparison between web and REST. So now you guys will can answer this. Anyone want to give any answers? What are the differences we have like studied? Web simple architecture. Yeah, correct. So let's say design. So design में we can say architecture web uses simple architecture and the rest uses complex arc. ठीक है? This is one of the thing. Another any other difference? Another difference would be of protocols. It is not a like a major difference, but yeah, it is. So जो web है uses HTTP and URL protocol. URL request and response protocol. Request and response. You can say URL protocol, but this is the complete name: URL request response protocol. Whereas REST only use HTTP. Okay, so these are the one difference. Another difference is the way you send the data. So the format of data, you can say format of data. So this web is flexible. Web is flexible. You can send the data in any format. So there is no issue in the web. But here in the REST, there is certain constraints. REST only send, I think I have talked about the way the format it sends the data. Can anyone mention that? Just अभी ऊपर बताया था. Yeah, JSON, XML, image, HTML, right? और SOAP as well. यहाँ भी बताया था ना मैंने. कहाँ पे बताया था? Yeah, HTML, XML, image, JSON, and SOAP. So only these kind of format of data is allowed to be sent in the REST, but in web you can like be flexible. So there's no issue with that. I think text is also something that you can send. Text basically, that's also in JSON and XML format. So yeah, this is the thing that you can send. So these are the difference. First is the design, protocols, and format. That's all between what is API, what is web API, and what is REST API, and their differences. So let me know that is it clear to you guys? I know this was a lot of theoretical part today. A lot of information might be there. So just let me know if you guys have any doubt, any issues, or it is clear. Should I need to like repeat anything? Okay, so there's no need to repeat anything, right? Jeruni and Linson and other Mukul and Devansh. Okay, so that's great, guys. I hope you are getting the information that I'm trying to teach you. So I will try to like send like as soon as I'm inside a group or something. So I will send this images or whatever the PDF format structure of code notes I can provide you guys. Also the resources that I'm following. So from there, okay, my number. Okay, I'll send. Just a second. 3732. This is my number. I will be added soonly in a group. Don't worry. Okay. So that's all for today, I believe, guys. Any feedback for today that it was good, it was okay, overwhelming or something? Thank you, Linson. rest of you can also give some kind of a feedback if you want, and please try to, like, from tomorrow, try to join bit on time, at least 10 8 5 8 10 tak join kar lo, please. Okay, so that's all for today, guys. Would be better if you could learn by practice. You know, from tomorrow हम fast थे थोड़े कुछ जगह. Okay, so ये चीज देवांश, लाइक मैंने बोला जहाँ पे तुम्हें जिस पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम पे लगे ना कि थोड़ा सा तेज जा रहा हूँ या स्लो जा रहा हूँ, लेट मी नो देयर ओनली. बट अगर समझ में आ गए सब कुछ तो ठीक है, दैट्स फाइन. नहीं आया तो प्लीज इंटरप्ट मी. ओके, सो ठीक है, वुड बी बेटर. हाँ जेरोनी, सो कल से हम यही चीज सिर्फ इम्प्लीमेंटेशन में देखेंगे. हम ज्यादा थियोरेटिकल पार्ट नहीं देखेंगे, सो डोंट वरी फॉर दैट. आज ये जो मेथड वाला पार्ट था ना, ये क्लियर नहीं होता ना, तो रेस्ट एपीआई पढ़ाने का कोई मतलब सेंस नहीं बैठता, इसलिए. And like again, I will say this to you guys, Devansh, Mukul, whenever you feel that okay, I'm going a bit fast, let me know at that point only, क्योंकि कोई सेंस नहीं ना बाद में लास्ट में फिर समझ ना आए. तो I will slow down, I will repeat again, I have no issues with that. But ये है कि देवांश एंड मुकुल just tell me कि जो पढ़ा है वो समझ में आ गया ना, मतलब at the end. कोई इशू है तो अभी भी पूछ लो. Okay, guys, I believe that's all for today. You guys can leave. See you guys tomorrow. Good night, guys. Bye bye.